I'd like to talk a bit about English and confidence. I've called this GCSE English and confidence, but of course it's not confined only to GCSE students in years 10 and 11. Students can lose confidence with English at much earlier stages, and the closer and closer that they get to year 10, the more this can be a little bit of a concern. I have lots of parents say to me, my child has lost confidence with English, they don't feel confident, can you help? There are lots of things we can do to help, and it's also useful, I think, to look at how confidence problems might affect English as a subject, as two subjects in fact, because it's English language and English literature. So English is a very personal subject, and the further we go in school, the more this becomes important. Students are expected to express opinions, to read something and say what they think about it. They are expected to write things in their own words. They're expected to be creative. They're expected to know what their response is to a poem or any other type of text. This can cause all sorts of worries. It does mean that we are not just learning things, but we are learning the skill of reading, understanding, and analysing ourselves to see what a particular text means to us. And this is across both literature and language. So English, being such a personal subject, can also worry students. And tied to this is the fact that in English, very often there's no specific right or wrong answer. For me, this is why I liked English, because I felt there was less to learn and less to get wrong. Fewer facts, maybe. However, some students, especially those who are really good at STEM-type subjects, who know how to learn things and how to apply what they've learnt to a specific problem and to get the answer correct, it can be quite odd and feel very different when they know that they could write an answer and the person sitting next to them could write an answer, and they could be given the same mark even though they've written something very different. And this is something which can then cause decreased confidence. I was going to say increased lack of confidence, decreased confidence, and with less confidence, because English lessons in school should be interactive. Students will find that they kind of shrink to the back of the class, that they watch other students having good ideas and saying, is it this? And entering into a kind of dialogue with the teacher maybe. And they'll often think and say to their parents or to me, I don't know how they know those things and how they think of them. And often it's just that those students have an idea and they're not too shy to risk saying, this is my idea. And of course, shyness can feed into this as well. If you are shy and you are in a class where you're reading a poem or you're reading some Shakespeare or something else, and you're asked to give your impression of what you've read, or you're asked, what do you think the writer is saying here? A shy person, a shy student, is far less likely to put their hand up and say, how about this? And so interacting less in class can make students feel a little bit left out, less part of that discussion that's going on, and it can lead to switching off and obviously, again, lack of confidence. So this is quite a complex situation that can be sparked off by different issues, and then can create a vicious circle. Any issues with problems with reading, problems with writing, dyslexia, anything like that, of course, can make all of this a lot more difficult for students. The result of this in class can be that a student thinks, I can't do that. I can't answer that question. I don't know what I think. Because after all, if we are feeling anxious in any situation, we are less likely to be able to have interesting ideas, to feel creative, to wonder what we think, because anxiety kind of shuts our thinking and feeling down a bit, doesn't it? And it can even turn into a kind of a panic where the student is just really, really trying not to be wrong, and this can obviously spiral into all sorts of things. Having GCSE exams coming up at the end of year 11 can simply exacerbate all of this. There is a lot of pressure on students. I think we all know that. There are a lot of subjects. Literature feels like a heavy subject because there are texts to read. Some of them are quite challenging, and there are essays to learn to write. Language, students often really don't know how to deal with that by themselves because it's much more skills-based, and it needs practice. And so language sometimes, in the midst of revising for all sorts of other subjects, language can get kind of squeezed out. So what do we do to what can we do about this? Well, obviously, having a discussion with somebody one-to-one can really help. If we are feeling anxious, lacking in confidence, shy in a group situation, then of course it's much easier to relax when we're talking to one person, when we realise we won't be judged, and we might then be able to risk giving an answer. And thinking, oh, maybe this isn't right, but I'll say it anyway because it's only one person. My classmates aren't going to laugh at me, for example. Hopefully that doesn't happen anyway. So that is one way that we can help a student who is struggling with a lack of confidence, which may be causing them to achieve below their actual potential in English. But there are other things we can do as well. I am very keen on students reading the texts and knowing them well. There are all sorts of ways that they can do this. I think that a lot of students feel that they have to learn about the texts. Yes, you do have to learn about them, but knowing the text really well, reading it again, for example, if it's a 19th century novel, reading it along with an audiobook. If it's a play, watching the play, watching shorter clips of the play, watching a movie version of the play, watching multiple different productions of a play, reading the poems over and over, listening to readings of the poems. All of those things help students to know the texts well, and that does increase confidence in my experience. If we know a text well, we are going to feel happier writing about it. What we are taught about it will also make more sense. I feel that knowing the text well is really the root of doing well at literature. With language, one of the things that we can really work on for the exams is knowing the exam papers really well. If we are doing AQA exams, which are the ones most frequently taken, then each of those questions in each of the 2 exam papers can be remembered, understood. What is being looked for here? How am I going to approach this question and this question? Knowing those things before going into an assessment in class, a mock exam or the real exams will make a difference. So there are things we can do, not just private tuition. There are practical things that can be done to help students with their confidence. And one other very important thing is to remember, sometimes the other students in class simply don't care so much about maybe getting things wrong. Maybe they just like the sound of their own voice a little bit better. Maybe they're willing to risk saying something that the teacher might not agree with in order to be the one in class who might be praised for having a good idea. So just getting some kind of balance on the in-class situation can be very helpful as well. If you have questions, I'd love to hear from you. Please do get in touch.